We welcome you back to the program. Thanks for being part of it. Frangie, Hayes, Carlyon, and our pal Sean Kelley joined us, the terrific play-by-play voice of the Gators. How are you, man?
I'm great, Frank. Thanks for the kind words. It's great to be over in this neck of the woods again. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, and you're a busy guy now. You got NBA here, and then back to Caravan, and then baseball. How's it been?
Just as you might expect.
Right.
Different city each day, and there's game day and non-game day. You know that. It's kind of a schedule, and it's a great time. It's a great kind of busy for sure. But I think that I'm ready to get back to maybe just one sport for a little bit, and we'll see how it goes. The Caravans have been awfully special, too, to get around the state. This will be our fifth of 6 Mondays on the road with Billy Napier here tonight over here at Sawgrass.
Sean, what's been the message that Billy has sort of conveyed at these previous stops?
You know, I think we've tried to tell the story of the offseason a little bit, and it was a pivotal one for Napier and his staff here going into year 3. And I think that the messaging is that the roster itself is as good a shape as it's been under his watch, that the building is now finally constructed, the landscaping's done out front, and when you talk about whether it be NIL or transfer portal or fixing deficiencies in that roster that he inherited, that maybe for the first time he's got staff right, program right, procedures right, all the processes, the mechanics are all now functioning as they should, as opposed to building on the fly as he's gone through this process. So in that sense, I find myself around a bit of a different Billy and Napier than I did in the first couple of years. And I think the roster over itself it feels different, looks different, and on paper it's drastically different than what he inherited when he came here a couple of years back.
And follow up on that. I want to ask you about all the sports and your gig in a bit, but I want to follow up on something Hayes just asked you. You said you see a different Billy Napier. Mm-hmm. More relaxed, more comfortable. His guys are there. Expound on that.
More doing what he wants to be doing, and that's, being the CEO of a football program and a head coach that's still quite hands-on in a lot of ways. So instead of seeing Billy torn in 40 different directions and his attention or focus being pulled by the process of figuring out NIL or building staff procedures, all those kind of things, it's a Billy Napier that's back to the football Billy Napier. That's his focus right now, and the development of the depth on his roster and a spring practice that saw everything run smoothly and all players that are now Billy Napier guys. And so that's why it feels different to be around him right now.
What's Graham Mertz like?
He's a pro right now. That's the crazy thing. Like, he comes in as a vet already. So many games started. I think it's 43 if I'm off by one, forgive me. But, when you have a guy with that kind of experience, you watch him practice, you watch him go through film, you watch him lead, and he had those intangibles kind of right away when he stepped on campus. And through the process of last fall, whether it be proving to his teammates who he was, his toughness, all those things on the field, by the end of the season, it's truly Graham Mertz's football team. And that has carried over into the offseason. And one thing that Coach Napier's talked about a lot during this Caravan is how important this is in recent Gator history as to Graham Mertz coming back for one more year, what that means. And what it means in a lot of ways is you have a guy now that's a full year and off-season plus in a Napier program that has all the tools necessary to run his offense and has taken command of that locker room too. So he sees it as a pivot point here in that sense, and also the luxury of having Mertz now guide a young DJ Langway through his first college football season. Those things in combination are very important.
What do you think about Langway? Have you seen him much? You've been around him?
Freakish. The first thing you notice is his size.
Yeah.
And we all read the measurements and everything else, and you'd watch the film and go, "Whoa, this is different looking, right?" Well, when you see him in person, that's a whole different deal. Not quite maybe the first time I saw Cam Newton up close and personal.
Yeah,
that was like jaw-dropping. DJ's not far behind with regard to that size, but then the athleticism to go on top of that. This is a guy that also greets everyone in the room when he comes in, that firm handshake. You can tell small-town Texas raised, shaped by two parents that had a large hand in his abilities on the field, but the way that he carries himself off the field. That struck me right away. And then you watch a guy, and you both have seen this before, there's that deer in headlights moment, okay, this isn't high school football anymore, and there's a lot more to consume here mentally. But for him to be an early enrollee is such a big thing. This is a guy that probably should be sending out graduation announcements right now, and yet he's now starting Summer A at Florida. He's already been on campus since January and has gone through half of an offseason in this sense. So watching him kind of go through those struggles, but at the same time flash all the things that made him, a Gatorade National Player of the Year.
Who are some newcomers out of the portal that you're excited about?
Pup Howard really jumps out, and that's, I think, a big storyline for the Gators defense, which the three of us probably could have helped them. I'm chuckling when I say that. But
I hear you, though.
That is a side of the foot that needed drastic improvement in a lot of ways. Some of it was how young that group was last year. So Pup Howard returns back here to this area, obviously. And then Asa Turner, who comes in and kind of helps shore up the safety situation. There's a transfer from Tulane also that comes over that is a real thumper as well. So now you've got skill and experience on the back end that you didn't have. You've got a healthy corner now in Jason Marshall coming back, Devin Moore, who looks he's healthier than he's ever been in Gainesville. But Howard, and then you'll notice the size up front for that defensive line, and then the offensive line too. Those are drastic additions from the portal. And, again, some healthy guys that now have more than 0 snaps under their belt to start a season.
Sean Kelley with us, play-by-play voice of the Gators. Frangie, Hayes, Carlyon with you. The pressure on them, that's real. We all know the sport. We all know the sport. We all know the world. This is Florida football. You're supposed to win every game, every year, for all time. How has Billy managed that? You have to keep the outside noise out. I know that. But you're around them a lot. You're around the program. How's the program managed that in your mind?
Yeah, I think that it starts with Napier, and then I think it's somewhat contagious throughout the roster and the building too, is that, yes, there is much deserved criticism, and there's a realization of the heat that comes with being a Gator in this program and its legacy. But I think that they also are trusting in what they have now in the room and the structure that's around them, to where there's almost like this kind of lying in the grass, kind of waiting to, you all just keep talking like you're talking. We'll see how this goes, because they have this quiet thing going on about them right now. I thought Graham Mertz did a pretty good job the other day. I think he said, and if I misquote him, I won't be off by much, but basically it's less about proving them wrong. It's more about proving that we're right to each other. That's one way to kind of deflect that noise. It's also a kind of a sneaky chip on your shoulder type thing. Now, the schedule's daunting, don't get me wrong, but I think there's more feeling of Gators feeling more like Gators again around this program than, I'm kind of a short timer. You guys have been covering this program for a long time, and by the way, I do want to bring up Norm Carlson at some point. I know that's near and dear.
It really is.
But there is a different feeling, but there's not some bravado about it. There's not some kind of like false expectation that comes with it. I just think that they're ready to move forward and see how it turns out. And it turns out to be a fast start with Miami coming in on August 31st.
That's right. Yeah. Tell us about your experience with Norm Carlson.
Well, not much, really, other than the legacy of Norm Carlson and the legend that he was, not just at UF, but in the Southeastern Conference, in college football. And I now work with a lot of people that benefited from his tutelage, from the foundation that he laid with regard to how sports information, PR is done at the University of Florida. And so I feel that right away. And I'm now connected to Norm through guys like Frank and Coach Spurrier and others at Steve McLean, whom I work for. They all were touched heavily in a good way by Norm Carlson and his legacy. And I thought Mike Bianchi did a great job in the Orlando Sentinel this past weekend, kind of writing about him, a bygone era, the things that we can take from Norm's life and his work that still apply today. And when I think about what I want my legacy to be at the University of Florida, it would, if it even comes to be just a whisper of what his was, someone who basically dedicated his life to the university and the growth of his craft and our sport and everything else, all those things are tremendous tributes to a man that deserves such.
Sean, he was all of that. I was and Bianchi and Pat Dooley and Robbie, we could go on and on. Chris Harry, who I know you know.
Scott Carter, too.
Scott Carter. We were all in that little beat group together well before I was on the electronic side. And I went to school at Florida in the late 70s, and I was a stringer for the local paper here in Jacksonville and had no idea what I was doing. No idea who to talk to, who to ask. What am I doing? I just got down here. I've never lived away from home. And then Norm took me under and said, listen, we'll help you. We'll show you. And that was 78. Okay, and it never changed. The business, as Bianchi wrote so eloquently in his column, the business changed, the world changed, how we cover teams, how coaches allow us to cover teams changed. But Norm never changed.
Never changed.
And he was that guy.
And relationships were at the core of all those things. And all of us who are in this business, we absolutely better have someone that we can point right to as our North Star, our mentor, the one that, like you said, pulled you aside. I got you.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you the way. And the fun part, the hard part, all those things. And for you all to have lost him, and again, we lose everyone, right?
Right.
It's just you're never ready for it.
That's right.
And it hurts. It hurts, obviously. But it's also, I think, a time to celebrate what he was to you and to the university.
Two things for you, Sean. We won't keep you all night. The basketball run had to be a lot of fun. We've had Todd Golden on a number of times. He's been fantastic with us. Seems like such a regular guy. And I think that thing's headed in the right direction.
I do too. When I got to campus, and I arrived the same summer as Golden and Napier both, and I had a unique perspective, right, coming from a very different place. I still believe that those are the two right guys for each of these two programs. And slowly but surely, they're proving me right, which is good for Florida Gators, right? And Todd Golden not only, I think, has it pointed in the right direction, but he is a rising star now amongst basketball folks, NBA on down. I said, I think early on, maybe I did to you, Frank, he reminds me of a young Brad Stevens a little bit, and my experience with him at the NBA level. And so he's been tremendous. The run was a lot of fun. And actually, my wife and I were just talking about this today. There comes a realization that there's a team that they probably won't go all the way, but, man, you want them to go as far as they can because you believe in what a particular coach is doing, or you become very fond of a roster that coach has built, and you want to share in that journey with them. That's one of the unique things about being the voice of a team, as you know. You share in that day-to-day. And now watching Billy now evolve through this offseason and what I think is where it's kind of headed, both Golden and Napier are tremendous to work with. I still think they're the right guys for these jobs. The tracks are just different. And it's a lot easier to turn a basketball program in the right direction, portal, recruiting, otherwise. We're talking about the sheer numbers, right? The bigger the ship, the harder it is to turn, or the slower it turns. So we see a kind of a quicker turn there with Gators basketball, and I think we're seeing that slow turn here with football as well.
Final thing for you.
Yep.
How much fun? You got Shane, you got Lee, who's probably making three-pointers with that big beard as he's warming out. You got Cardozo and Nick. Are you having a blast? You've been here long enough now. You sound great, though. You've done a fantastic job.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Are you having fun?
I am. It's everything I wanted it to be and then some. And a lot of it has to do with just the people, right? And there's nothing better than falling into a situation where each of your broadcast partners is tremendous to work with, sports information people, the coaches you have to deal with. It's different at the college level than the pro level. But, no, it's been fantastic. It really has. I still get to keep my hand in some other stuff, with, as you mentioned, the NBA playoffs and other stuff that I still do kind of. Now it's kind of the side hustle with ESPN radio. But the main job, the primary job, pretty good gig.
Mick Hubert set that bar high. I think you're knocking it out of the park. It was a tough bar. I love having you on. I appreciate it.
Man, you have no idea what that means to me. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it.
Sean Kelley, the terrific play-by-play voice of the Gators. More in a moment on 1010 XL and 92.5 FM.